allow us, either all at once or a few at a time, to hit the ground running. But more importantly, we want you to make that leap of faith with us. Faith-based, not on any governing body, institution, or committee, but faith-based on the tenacity, the sand, the guts of the people of Cedar Rapids. We have not been, or are we ready to become, the type of people who give up in the face of adversity. Leaders come and go. We are Cedar Rapids. Let's fix up what we can, replace what we can't, and as we do, remember that this is our city, and woe to those who abuse our faith. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. I'm Jason Hollendrum with Sasaki Associates. I'm leading the consultant team working with the city on the neighborhood planning. And I would like to welcome everybody again and thank everybody for coming. I think as everybody walked in, they saw the board outside that showed there's about 910 people that have attended the last 4 planning meetings. I think the city's estimated that that's about 4,160 hours that people have contributed to this. I just want to thank everybody for the job. Excellent. But thank you to all of you, because none of this could happen without you. And as Greg mentioned in this opening, it's about the neighbors rebuilding these neighborhoods, and it's taking place here. So thank you and good morning. I'm going to give a quick overview of the agenda for today in a little bit more detail. This is a really exciting day because today we're actually going to start looking at some of the scenarios that will go into the area plans and building them. So we'll be looking at different options of ideas related to transportation, open space, connectivity, housing, business revitalization, arts and culture, historic rehab, all of those elements. We're going to break them into 2 presentations this morning. First will be focused on transportation, open space, and connectivity. We'll have a breakout following that. The second session, we'll look at scenarios focused on business reinvestment, housing, arts and culture, and looking at those neighborhood centers and strengthening all of those. The third presentation we have is going to be very interesting. At 1:15, a couple members from the police department, Lieutenant Minks and Lieutenant Harrison, will be taking us through an exercise on community-oriented governance. And I'll touch on that in just a second, but the key to that is we're going to be focusing a little bit on some of the initiatives in the community on enhance our neighborhoods and community policing. But the focus of that discussion is really how that touches the work in the neighborhoods and the relationship with all the departments in the city, whether it's public works, community development, police, fire, code enforcement, housing, all of them. And it's about developing that relationship that as we're building these area plans today, that work and those relationships are going to be the things that carry through in the implementation of these area plans in the future years. Because there are things that are going to get started in months. There'll be things that get started in the next couple of years. There are things that might get started in 5 or 10 years. So it's a long relationship, and that's the start of it. So a little bit of the feedback that we heard was we were moving pretty quickly. We want to give people a little bit of an update on where we've been, where we're going, and how everything fits together. So just a quick update on the planning process to date. Last summer we did the Phase 1 Framework Reinvestment Plan. This was adopted by Council in November. We had 3 open houses. We had about 2,500 people attend. And the focus of this was really for the community to figure out a new alignment for a flood management structure and flood protection. So where would walls and levees be, which would lead us to a second step of how we start to focus on that reinvestment in the neighborhoods, which leads us to the process that we've been going through the last 4 sessions and what we'll be doing the next 4. This was the opportunities feedback that we heard through that first phase. And while we focused on flood management structures, there are other themes that started to emerge. And what were some of the opportunities that we could build off of? So if we were looking at a new greenway along the river, how can we turn that into a great open space system for the community? And if some streets were disconnected by that flood structure, well, what opportunities were there for reconnecting streets and linking other neighborhoods together? And finally, how do we start to look at our neighborhoods and strengthen them? And that was where we started to look at all the neighborhoods that were flood affected. And this is the diagram that we've been working with for the past couple work sessions. And started to look at it and say, We have about 8 neighborhoods that were flood affected, but let's start clustering them together for a couple of reasons, and that was to help focus on the river, and rather than the river being a divide, but the river is something that links all the community together. We could start working on this so as we develop these area plans, there's better coordination and collaboration amongst different neighborhoods, and each of the neighborhoods have different shared interests. And so how can we start to restructure some of these area plans to try and improve some of that collaboration and coordination amongst the neighborhoods? So where are we going now? There's 3 things, and we've been focused a lot on talking about area plans, and there are area plans and they have physical aspects to it. We've hit on those. It's housing, business reinvestment, it's transportation, it's connectivity. And from that area plan will be the action plans, and that's that circle on the top right. But there's 2 other key components to that. And the first is that building community governance, and it's that relationship with the neighborhood associations and identifying and understanding what those roles are in each of the neighborhoods and what their roles are in working with different departments in the city and different businesses and different stakeholders in helping to implement the plans. Then you look at the bottom, and it's how do we implement it, and how do we evaluate it, and how do we monitor it as we move ahead. It's going to be, we're creating the foundation for an area plan in these meetings, but it's going to change over the years. There'll be things that change, there'll be funding systems that change, there'll be different needs that change. And so how do we continue to monitor and evaluate it and make sure that we're achieving the goals of the community? This is just a timeline of the dates of how each of these fit together. We've tried to color code things related to what fits into the physical area plan and action items, what relates to the evaluation of that framework and implementing it, and then what fits into that roles and responsibilities in community governance. And you can see how each of these fit into some of the meetings that we've been doing over the past, I guess, 2 months here, since January 10th on our kickoff. And then just that timeline again of how these fit together. There are 3 tracks that work together. Community governance, that's something that actually started pre-flood, and some of the work that was going on with programs like Enhance Our Neighborhoods and community governance and neighborhood associations. We've been building our area plans, but then also that evaluation framework and how that's going to carry on in the future. So I'll now lead into some of the scenarios, and I'm going to transition over to Gina Ford and Igor Anderson in a second. But just looking at it, what are scenarios? Well, scenarios are really building off some of the ideas that we've talked about related to the opportunities in the neighborhood.